Hello everyone and welcome back. For those of you who are joining me again, thank you very much, and I am very pleased to have you as part of my subscribers and audience. And for those of you who just stopped by to see what it's all about, welcome to you. Today I am going to be sharing some tips and tricks for doing miniature upholstery that I picked up back when I used to sew a lot, and I found it's very useful also for this, so I wanted to share them with you. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, and I'm not saying it's the wrong way to do it. There is no wrong way to do it. You do it the way you like. These are just some tips and tricks I wanted to share with you. So first of all, we are going to be doing outer curves, such as on this circle. I'm going to try to stay in camera, guys. This is the, oh my gosh, 5th or 6th time I've been having tripod problems. I've been not staying in screen. I'm going to try my best, guys. I'm going to be watching that little screen every chance I get. We're going to do an inner curve. See, here I am off camera again because where it looks like it's at on the screen is not where it is. I need to redraw my square so I know where I'm at. So I can go up that, I can't even see it. Go up that far. I can come over this far. And I can go right about there. That should put me, if I stay in this, I should be in screen. Should be. But that was the problem. I was off screen on the last videos, and so I'm doing them again. And then we're going to look at another way to do a corner. See, here I go. That is almost invisible. I'm a little tired. I'm a little tired of doing this video. Let's be honest. Okay, so I don't know if I can zoom in just a little more, if that's going to make a difference. Hopefully. But we're going to try it. This is a no-sew tutorial, so all we will be needing is some fabric shears, possibly some regular shears. I'm going to need some material. May or may not need a pencil, pen, or a marker. I won't be using one, but you sure can. And we'll be needing something we can cover, or whatever our seat and cushion are going to be. Oh my lord, let me back up just a hair. I'm so sorry. I apologize for that. I'm trying to get it right. And I apologize for my fingers because I've been gluing. I've done this video 3 times. I did some painting and I'm kind of a mess right now. So let's talk about what we're going to use. For my circle, which will make the top of like a small ottoman or stool of some sort, I bought a bag of these. What they are is they're the seals for the old glass milk bottles, where they would put the foil over the top and then you peeled that off and then you got down to this. It was the seal inside and then you pulled this little tab up and you could pop your seal out and use your milk. You can use whatever you like, wood, it doesn't matter, foam core, anything. And speaking of foam core, I'm going to be using just a piece of regular foam core. And then I'm going to be using a piece of poster board for our inner circle, or I'm calling it an inner circle because it curves in. So now let's talk about the types of stuffing we can use, and I'm just going to show you the types that I like best. So first of all, there is felt. Felt is firm because of the way it's put together. It does not have a lot of give. It's not going to make a real soft cushion, but you can stack layers of it up, which will give you a little more softness and a bigger, rounder cushion. I like felt. Next is this quilt batting, and I believe that this is wool. It feels like wool, it looks like wool, and it's either a wool or a wool blend. I prefer this over the fiberfill because the fiberfill is polyester fiberfill. Polyester is a synthetic. It's the fibers in it are more coarse and it tends to just pop up or go wherever. I mean, mean, it's perfectly fine to use. I've used it many times. I just prefer this. And again, it's not very thick, but it can be folded over. You can stack layers of it on top of each other till you get the thickness you want. Another thing I like to use is polar fleece. Now, polar fleece also is thin, but can be layered for thicker padding. It has a lot of stretch to it. If I move around, guys, I'm just trying to stay in screen because this is just totally weird to me today. And then I like to use this little foam. It's just a really soft little foam. It's kind of like a sponge in a way. I got that in some it was in a package. It was something I bought, and I wish I had more of it because I really like it, especially for chair seats. Okay, next we're going to talk about fabric, and I would recommend pressing your fabric. However, mine isn't real wrinkled, so we're going to go with it. Fabric, for those of you who do not sew, fabric has a grain. Okay, if you are on the grain of the fabric, you cannot stretch it. It will not stretch. So if you don't have one that has what they call the selvage edge with the maker's marks usually on them and stuff, if you can't stretch it, you're on the grain. If you go the opposite direction of the grain, you will have a little bit of give and a little bit of stretch. And then there's the bias, which is the crossways part of the fabric. And as you can see, the bias is very, very stretchy. In some cases, the bias is a good thing, and in other cases, not so much. So that's just a little bit about fabric. We're not going to be too concerned today with grain or bias or anything like that. We're just going to use the fabric. So let's get started on this project. For you, it'll be the first time. For me, it'll be 4, 5. I don't know. I lost count. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the round one first. And I'm just going to take, and I recommend using a glue that does not set up right away. It does not get really sticky and tacky right away because you want some time to kind of play around with your fabric, kind of manipulate it a little bit. So I am just going to put some glue down on this milk cap. And then I'm just going to stick my little circle of foam to that. Just kind of press it down. And then I am going to, checking for size here. These are just some old scraps of fabric. I think that one will be fine. I'm just going to put a little dot of glue right in the middle just to kind of hold my fabric in place. And I'm going to place it on the wrong side because I want to make sure I've got enough room on each side because we've got a little bit of cutting to do. Like I said, please brush your fabric. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut, and I'm going to want to leave about 3/8 of an inch around the edge of my circle. Don't worry if it's not perfectly round. As long as it's close, you'll be fine. Don't worry if it's exactly 3/8 of an inch. You don't want it too long or too big around, but you don't want it too small either. Okay. Now what I like to do is I like to take it and I like to pull it. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. I like to pull it over the edge just a little bit, make sure I'm going to have enough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start clipping. And I'm going to go through this whole process with you, which is going to be rather tedious to you. Now when we clip, when we start our clips, we do not want to clip all the way to the edge of our item we're going to cover. Do not. Leave about 1/8 of an inch, I would say, for sure. So we're just going to take and we're going to clip little triangle pieces out of it. Can you see that? Where am I at? Oh, I'm way off again. Alright, I'm sorry. This is a different tripod, different setup. My other tripod kept flipping my camera straight down, so you're looking at the tripod. But if you can see that, we're going to clip little notches out of, little triangle shaped notches out of our fabric. It's not an exact science. You don't have to be perfect with it. All you really have to do is try to get them, you know, as close to even as you can. It's not going to be perfect. And try to leave at least 1/8 of an inch. I wouldn't leave too much more than that, but I also wouldn't leave less than that. And do not clip up to the item you're covering. If you've done that, you've clipped too much. You will have a gap. And I want to apologize right now for any redundancy, but I do think some things are very important. I'm going to let you just watch me clip. It's a little bit tedious. You'll get tired of it probably if you don't like sitting clipping triangles, and I don't. But it is so worth it to take the extra time to do this in your finished project. And when you get done, you probably still won't like clipping triangles, but you'll get something good out of the whole deal. I almost clipped too far on that one. Almost. And that's another thing. If you're just clipping away and you're not paying attention, it's easy sometimes for your scissors to get away from you. And then you clip too close without meaning to. Try to get 2 more. I've clipped these a little bigger than I usually do, but I've got more fabric than I usually use too. I usually clip it down so that it's not quite so big around the edge. But that's what you're left with. Looks like a little, kind of like a little flower. And of course all these fun little pieces of cloth. Alright, so let's start. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start laying down some glue around the edge. I'm not going to lay too much. And I'm going to start folding my little triangle pieces onto my thing. Now the reason I say don't use, or I'd rather use a glue that doesn't stick right away, is because sometimes you need to pull and manipulate your fabric a little bit in this project. Ideally what we want is the little triangle pieces to come together on the inside. See where they're all just kind of laying side by side coming together? That's what we want. That's going to give us our nicest edge. And because they don't fold over on each other a lot, it reduces a lot of the bulk that we sometimes get in our miniatures. I'm not going to say there isn't going to be a little bit, but it really won't be as much as you can normally get if you're just turning your edges of your circles under. You gotta watch too that you're not pulling too tight on one area, because that too can mess up everything. So it's kind of a put a little glue down, turn your little triangles, manipulate them a little bit so they're going the right direction. You want them all to turn toward each other, or at least be close to each other. You don't want them going apart. You want them together. That's why we're doing it this way. So we're just gonna keep turning, and there will be a little bit of overlap. That tends to happen. Let's see, I'm just pulling one out that was going to go the wrong way. Try not to get glue on the top of your project. Just keep moving and turning. Like I said, you will have a little bit of overlap, but you're not going to have those big, bunchy, bulky overlaps that you can get, like I said, you get if you just take the sides of the material and just flip them over. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. No rights, no wrongs. Alright, now, you're going to see that with this, you're going to have, whoops, where are we? Why am I not in? Oh, okay, so you're going to see that you might end up with a few small lumps and bumps around your edges. Don't look at the underside. But all in all, it's going to be pretty smooth when you're done with it. And Keep in mind, I am using cottons and cotton blends, so I'm not dealing with a really thick fabric. And you can still, as you see any little lumps and bumps, you can just kind of take your fingers and just kind of gently push toward the middle on the other side. And there you go. All right, let's tackle the inner curve next, because this is probably actually the easiest one to do. So I'm going to take some fabric. Now, definitely scissors that probably need to go in the garbage. All right. So what we're going to do with this is we're just going to lay some glue down on the edges. A lot of glue right there. Be careful too that you don't lay down too much glue that it comes through your fabrics. Some fabric is woven pretty loose and other fabric is fine. So I'm going to use the quilt batting on this one. And I'm just going to lay it down on there, press it down into the glue. And, you know, I would recommend letting your glue dry some before cutting. But since we're doing it here on camera, I'm just going to go ahead and cut right away. I'm cutting all the way down to the edge of my poster board that I'm using. And again, this will work on anything you use. Just leave that enough fabric that you have enough to go around the edges and stuff. Now, I'm not going to be folding over the sides or the bottom of it. I'm just going to be showing you the circle. So once I've got that on, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put some glue around the edges, around the circle part, or the half circle. I just want enough just to grab the fabric, but I don't want enough to go through the fabric. So I'm just going to flip it over, push it down into my fabric, make sure my fabric is, there's extra fabric around the edge, because if I were really covering this, I would want the extra fabric on the edge that I could fold under. But since I'm not, I'm just going to cut that off. I would advise you to do your half circle before you do your edges. Sometimes you need that little bit extra fabric. You need to pull just a little bit, and I'll tell you why when we're done. Okay. All right. So there we have our little thing. I just need to cut the circle out, the half circle, and once again, this time I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch. I'm not going to leave as much as I did on the other one. I almost left too much on that one. This is not going to be the straightest cut in the world, but it'll do the trick. Probably a smaller pair of scissors would work really well for this project, but I don't have them. So I'm just going to start just cutting slits in it, just regular slits, just chopping around my circle, and once again, do not cut right up to the edge of your project. Now you want to make enough slits. You don't want them too far apart. I would go under 1/4 inch on how far apart to put them. And there's also a reason for that. Okay, so now we have this, and we have all these little slits cut in it. Can you see that? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so then we're just going to put glue around the edge. And we're just going to start turning our little slits to the inside. Now, I like to start in the middle. I like to just start in the middle, pull them down, get them in the glue. This fabric takes glue really well. Some fabric will stick really well with the glue right away, and some will not. That's something to keep in mind. Stick it down, and as you can see, where with the little pieces we cut that were more triangular, or we cut the triangles out of them, they went together. They went inward together. This goes outward. So for circles that go around like this, oops, sorry, you want the triangle notches. For an inner circle like this, you want just little slits, because you want them to fan out away from each other, and you have no bulk other than the little bit of material you turned under. You have a nice curve. Simple as that. All right, this is This is the not so simple one, and I see I've got a weird edge on there, so I'm just going to cut that off. This is the one that's an, oh my gosh. Do I really want to do this? I'm terrified. So yeah, I was totally terrified the first time I saw the lady do it, and she has not posted anything here on YouTube for, oh, it's been about a year, I think. Her channel is still up. It's Maker of Miniature Modern Art, and her name is Margie. She does some fantastic things, and I wish she'd come back because her stuff was really amazing. Now this one I am going to cover with, I'm going to use felt. This is just a piece of foam core. And I'm just going to put a piece of felt on it. Doesn't matter what you use for your padding, whatever you want to use. And I'm just going to cut it off so that it's even with the foam core. Today I'm not doing any projects where my padding is going to go over the edge. And because I might want it a little more padded, and I've already cut the piece, I'm going to go ahead and glue the polar fleece over the top of the felt. This is not something that you have to do. This is just me wanting to use up stuff I cut. I need to get rid of some little material scraps, and we'll get to it. Okay, so I'm just going to glue the polar fleece down on top of the felt. Just going to press it on. Do the same thing I did with the felt, just chop the edges. And call it good. Alright, now this one is a little bit trickier. Makes really cool edges if you do it right. I'm going to attempt to do it right for you. Now on this one I want extra out to the sides. I want to make sure that it goes over all sides. This one is a little bit too long. I'm going to cut it off, but I am not going to cut off a lot. Alright. So now I'm going to put a little glue around the edge of my polar fleece. Just around the edge, just to hold it. Don't need a lot, just a little bit. In fact, you probably wouldn't even need this much, but it's just to hold it. Whoops. Alright, so we want to try to get it pretty much centered. Okay, just like so. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try not to glue right to the edge. I mean, it's not going to hurt if you glue to the corner, but I'm going to, well, I did on one side, I didn't on the other, and I'm just going to pull the edge up just like, you know, when you're regularly covering any sort of, you know, miniature furniture of any type, or anything else you want to cover this way. I'm just pulling it up, just like normal, and I'm going to do the same thing on this edge. I'm just going to pull it, I'm not going to pull it too tight, I'm just going to pull it up so that it's, so that we have our, what looks like the start of a cushion. There. Okay. Now, when I go to do the sides, this is where this one gets tricky. It's actually kind of fun once you learn to do it, and I'm going to show you something right now. Margie, who makes the really cool stuff, this is a mid-century, like, daybed, love seat, something like that she did, and I loved it, so I had to try it. Now, this fabric has a very loose weave to it. It's not all linen, I don't believe, but it's like a linen. And I was able to do some pretty nifty corners on it. I just love that little piece. I don't have anywhere to use it, but I love it. And so I'm going to show you how those corners are done today. As I said, this is not my original idea. Okay, so I like to peel my corners back. This is why I don't really want to, you know, put glue all the way to the edge. Now I'm going to put some glue there. My glue is having an oozing problem. If you hear a noise in the background, it is my air conditioner. It's been in the 80s, 90s for 2 weeks straight, and we have had very little rain, and it is hot. Okay, so now I put a line of glue across the edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my edge up, pulling on it, pulling to make sure I get it up there. And then what I want is I want my corners. I'm going to have to move this piece because I want these corners, I want this corner to come together as close as I can get it. As absolutely close as I can get that corner. I want it. So now I'm going to do the same with the other corner, and I'm going to have to pull my fabrics to get my corner to meet up as close as I can get it, and that's about as close as I can get it. Right there, let's see. That's about as close as I can get it, but I want my corners matched up and as close together as I can get them. Now, I just ended up with a wrinkle in my fabric, which I had to pull out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut off a lot of this corner. About that much. I really had too much fabric, but I think as small as the project is, it's probably about the only good way I'm going to show you how this happens, this process. Cut off a little more down here. Okay, now we have these two corners sticking out. You can see that right there. And I have got them pulled as close and as tight as I can get them. Now, here comes the part, and I encourage you all, in fact, I highly recommend, do this on old fabric, on scrap pieces of whatever you're going to cover. Do not do what I did and just go, oh yeah, I can do it. I did, but I shouldn't have just done it that way. I should have really practiced first. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these scissors and we're going to cut. We're going to right up here on this corner, our nice little corner of our little cushion, and we are going to take it and we are going to not cut into the cushion, but we are going to cut right along it, a nice rounded cut. Just like that. I'm trying to get it so you can see it. A nice rounded cut, and that's going to make me come in from the bottom, and I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to try to cut it a little bit rounded too, not cutting into my cushion. Okay, so now this would probably be a good job for a toothpick. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right up there, or that gap, because there's a gap there now. I cut the fabric. There's a gap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start manipulating it together. And I know you're not going to be able to see that really well. Just kind of start manipulating it, kind of pulling on it, pulling it down towards your bottom, pulling it in toward itself, pulling your two pieces of corner together. And I'm just snipping off some excess. More glue on there just to make sure I get it held down. And look at that corner. Oops. Let me zoom in on that one. Look at that corner. Almost as close to perfect as we can get. Like I said, this is a little scary, but so worth it. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, I don't want to snip too deep, and if I do, I mean it's going to be okay for this. Here's your corner. Whoops. Where am I? Okay. Here's your corner. It's got the little gap in it. That one's sticking out a little far yet. I'm going to clip it just a bit closer. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. This angle is so weird to me. Just a little bit closer. Put my glue in that little bitty corner right there, in that little hole. I'm going to start working it down and working it over toward itself so that both corners of that catch. Snip off this bottom because it's too big. I don't want the bulk that that's going to cause. And I just start pushing down and pushing together. And again, another nice little corner. Not so hard. It's just, I think for me, part of it was the fear of going, oh, I'm going to be cutting my fabric. I'm going to be cutting this weird curve right at the corner. What if I make a mistake? Well, if you do, you're probably going to know. You're going to have a big gap. So once again, push your fabric over, pull those corners out so you can get them right together as close as you possibly can. And if that means you've got to pull on the fabrics that you've already glued and manipulate them over to where you want them, that's fine. Anything to get that nice pointed corner. Stick a little dab of glue in there just to hold it. Pull downward. Smooth out your other material if you need to. Get your corners right together. Take your scissors, go to the outside, make sure you are not cutting through your padding. Just so you have that little bitty gap. Okay, in this one I need to trim around a little more. It's the bad part, your scissors will get sticky. So if you have a really good, best pair of sewing scissors, I would not recommend it. Okay, so where that little gap is, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue. I'm going to start pressing it down and toward itself. And different materials will react in different ways. So always be mindful of the type of material you're using. Will it fray? You know, is it going to stretch a lot when I go to do that? Okay, now I'm just going to clip off this extra part here that's too big and too thick. That little corner. Making sure that now, once again, that I'm pressing it down and toward each other. And I've watched bookbinders do this on books. So, there is something to it. I'm going to get rid of that little corner. Just keep pressing it together and pressing it a little bit in a downward motion. Don't press too hard, but press hard enough to move what you need to move. Okay, last one. Will I get 4 good corners? This is the question. Scary, but so worth it. I personally don't like coming up from the bottom. You might try this and you might be like, hey, I thought it was easier to cut from the bottom. Fine. That's good. That's great. Whatever works for you. I'm just merely showing you the way I do it. This side is too long. Okay, I have a bigger gap in here. This may, oh, I guess no, it's purple. It's just the purple from the floral pattern. If you don't get enough glue in there, it's not going to stick together. So I'm pressing it together. I'm pressing it a little bit downward. I can see I've got, where'd it go? I can see, which one am I working on? This one. I can see I've got a little too much right there and right there. And so now I'm going to keep pressing it together. Pressing it together, pressing it downward. Together and downward. And this one I do believe I have a gap in, or maybe not. Some of your patterns on your fabric make it a little hard to tell also whether you have a gap or what you have, but here you go. Let's see if I can zoom in without losing you. Little corners that are nicely tucked and barely noticeable. Oops, go that way. There you go. I'm sorry, I will get this camera thing figured out and this tripod deal figured out before the next video. Not a lot of bulk underneath, a little bit, because I had a little too long of material pieces, but not bad. Nice little cushion. Alright, so that's going to wrap it up for that. I hope you found this useful. I hope you enjoyed the process, even though I was struggling to find where the camera was. I am going to buy a new tripod and set it up and not move it around like I've been moving the two I've got. And yeah, let's take one last look. Let's zoom out a little bit. Take one last look at our little things. Ones we did together, the ones I did before. There we go. A little circle. some pretty nicely finished edges. Our little inward half circle. Our little cushion with the nice little corners. Almost like box corners. Yeah. Alright, so that's it. Thank you very much for joining me. I would like to ask you to please hit like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. I hope you found this video informative. I will be back on Monday and we will go back to Grandma's house. We will start on the mystery room, see what I decided to do with it. So I will see you soon. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Hello again. I realized when I went through that video that I was off camera in the, major part of the doing this, which was cutting the corners. So I'm gonna, real quick here, do it again. Make sure you see what I'm doing. I think I've got my tripod issue fixed now. I just didn't have it up as high as I usually do, and it was making it look weird when I was looking at it. So let's zoom in right about there, and let's do this. So go back to where we were. We're gonna just put some glue on. I won't do the whole thing, but I will go through a corner with you. Glue is on. Stick it down to the fabric. Okay, we're going to start turning our fabric. So put some glue on the back here. Pull it up. I did not glue all the way to the corners. I left them. Okay. It's going to come down a little bit. Sorry guys, gotta get a better system. Zoom in a little more. Try to stay right here. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Okay, so I didn't glue all the way into the corner. I'm gonna bring this side up too. Pull it over like I want it. This one's a little short. Go. Too much glue there. It's not going to matter. This is just to show you what I didn't show you in the video that I thought I was showing you. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold this end. We're going to put a little glue here in the corner. So we're going to go right into that corner. Put a little glue there. Just kind of draw our line across and into the other corner like so. Okay. Fold this up and over so it catches, and while we're doing that, we're going to take the corners of our fabric and we're just going to pinch them, kind of pull a little bit downward on them. As you can see, I'm just kind of pulling a little bit downward, pinch them together as tight as we can get them. So they look like that. That is about as tight as I can get them together. Okay, I'm going to snip off part of it. It's too long. I don't want to work with all that, so I'm just going to snip those off. So now I have two smaller little corner pieces. Not quite so high, much easier to work with. Okay, once I'm satisfied that I have them pinched together as tight as I can, I'm going to kind of got to make just a little bit of a downward pull when you're pinching them together. Just not real, you don't want to pull real hard, a little bit. And then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to go right up to the edge. I don't know how to show you this good. It wouldn't have mattered what color fabric I had. Don't snip your stuffing, but you're going to make a little rounded, or you're going to go with a rounded cut down off that corner. Okay, so you end up with a corner like that. It's got a little bit of a gap in it, as you can see. I've got a little too much fabric sticking up down here. I don't like working with that little bit that's sticking up, so I'm going to try to snip off as much of that as I can. Then I'm going to take a little bit of glue. I would use a toothpick. I think that would probably maybe work best if you just applied it with a toothpick. It's that little bit of glue there, see? Because you got a little bitty gap. Now, what you do with that is you take it and you kind of manipulate the corner down, just pulling it downward just a bit and pushing it together. Okay? Just pull it downward a little and then push it together. And then check, and if you have anything sticking up or out, you can go ahead and snip that. It's got glue on it, it's going to be fine. And I can see a little bit sticking up here that I'm sure you can't see. It's very tiny, but it's there, and I don't want it there. And again, if a small pair of scissors would work really well for this. So you just first kind of move it down and stick it together, and at the end you can just kind of press it down. Works just fine. So one more time, scissors go up here in the corner. So make sure you're on your corner. Don't cut your stuffing. Cut in a rounded motion down to the base of the cushion. Okay, now this one is a little bit, I'm going to cut off this bottom edge just a little because it's sticking out, and I really don't care for the way it's sticking out. This is another thing, this one came open just a little bit. So again, I'm just going to kind of squeeze it together with my fingers, and I'm going to poke it down, and now I can see more clearly where I have too much fabric. Trim that off. Okay, back to the other side. We've got our little gap. I'm going to put a little bit of glue up there. Too much glue is going to get glue all over your project. This material frays really badly. Come on, glue. Okay, so I've got just the tiniest bit of glue. I'm going to try to work that around up in that gap with my finger. And I'm going to start pushing downward a little, and then try to squish it together. Sorry about my great descriptive terms, guys. Squishing, you know. Pushing it together, pulling it downward a little bit. Cut off the excess that's sticking up, because you should have enough glue on here that it's going to hold it. You shouldn't have to worry about it. This one did not come out quite like the other one because there's still a little too much fabric, so I'm going to carefully cut just a little more off. Poke it down. Make sure it's together. Make sure you're pulling down a little bit. There you go. There's your corners. As you can see, I've still got a little bit sticking down right there. If I had smaller scissors, I would maybe be able to trim that just a little bit neater. Yeah, it would definitely take some smaller scissors. But anyway, that is what I did not show you. And this one has way too much sticking up. And these are the things you kind of notice and see as you're looking at it. Once you get it done, just kind of give it a once over. If there's a little bit too much sticking up somewhere, cut it off. Okay, so that's it. So just remember, start at the corner. Do not cut your stuffing. Rounded cut. Rounded cut right along that to the bottom. Put the glue in where you have the little gap up here. Kind of push it down a little bit. Kind of just push that little top of the corner down a little bit. Squish it together. Check to see if there's anything sticking up that you want to cut off. Chop it off. And in this case, look what I did, guys. This I chopped too close and opened my corner back up. So be careful. Be careful. Makes a really nice finished edge. I'm sorry I was off camera. Bye.